Right, so Bondo, this is just some stuff I got. I think this was Canadian Tire. You can just get it at any pretty much automotive stuff. You can get this stuff at Part Source and stuff as well. It comes in different sizes. You can get it in little smaller jars, that kind of thing. This is just the right size for us, I guess. If you're always screwing stuff up, that's just the way it goes. You need a big jar of this. Anyway, and things happen all the time, no matter what way you look at it. Just moving stuff around, it gets beat up a little bit. Especially with melamine, it's super, super picky. Yeah. Anyway, with this Bondo, usually with a tin of this stuff, you'll get a little spatula with it or a little kind of putty knife thing, just a plastic one. That plastic one will be a tan color. That tan color is what you should be mixing this stuff to give it its best chance at hardening and all that fun stuff. So you got a red hardener and you've got your just a regular Bondo. Until you mix them together, it's not going to harden. All right, so I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to be really close to what we want it to be anyway. I've done it many a time. So if you've never touched this before, the little spatula plastic thing, that salmon color, skin color type thing, make sure that you mix it as close to that as possible. I can say it again if you really want me to in a different way. I don't know if it's going to help, but here you go. So this got a nice creamy consistency. If I want to get all the stuff off there, yeah, it doesn't matter too much. But now from this point on, I've got maybe 5 to 10 minutes to work with this stuff. So that's why you don't want to do a bunch of holes and stuff. I'm going to do the monitor piece first here. So I'm just going to put that on. You might have to, like if you're not really experienced with this stuff and it becomes a bit of a pain, you might have to build it up like over a couple of passes on it. Don't make it too thick. As strong as it is, it becomes a real big pain to sand down. Okay, so if you're not prepared, it will come to haunt you. Okay, so this here, I'm using it to build up my ridge because I know that is going to be a bit of a weak spot, and this stuff is pretty strong. All right, so I'm not going to play with it too much more. I'm just going to let it dry. That'll probably take, I would say that would take at least an hour or two to dry all the way through 100% before you beat the heck out of it with sandpaper. But yeah, it should be okay. Now, what we're going to do is do these screw holes because I want to show you something here. These may require 2 passes, so put it on there, let it dry for a half hour, and then do it again. The reason why is that, yes, I said this stuff doesn't shrink, and it doesn't after it's dry. But as it's drying, it will mushroom inside these holes a little bit. Sometimes you'll get bubbles and things like that. If you look at this one here, you couldn't see it here, but now it's kind of sitting there. It's not, gravity's not taking hold or anything, but you can kind of see this circular kind of, thing coming through. Here it's already done it because I did that one first. So it bubbles out. If I was to sand that off right now, there may or may not be a bubble underneath there. You can take your chances, that type of a thing. I wait till it dries out quite a bit. See, now that I went over it again and it pulled away, you could see there was a bubble of air in there. Now there's a hole in it. Okay, so it just takes a little bit of getting used to with Bondo, but it's a beautiful product to work with. Makes these fixes a dream after the fact if you have to deal with it, and it gives you all the strength in the world and you'll never know what happened. Super easy to sculpt and mold so you can get a nice straight flat edge on it, and it looks all nice when it's all done. Okay, so I'm just going to build this up. It's giving me grief. I'll scrape a little bit out and then I'll try to build up a big chunk there and leave that. And then if it seems to go a little bubbly or weird on me, then I will either take a razor blade and scrape off a bit to see if I can find any holes or bubbles in it. And then I'll mix another little batch of Bondo and then fill that as well. Feel free, if you want, to just sand that off. If it goes kind of convex in there and it gives you a little bit of a dip where you can see it, you can actually just make up another batch of Bondo and then build up on top of the Bondo that you already had, and it will still stay as strong as it's supposed to, so you should be okay that way. All right, so we'll come back and I'll sand these here. I'll probably do it tomorrow, but we'll come back and we'll finish the video off by sanding these off, and you can see how the finish looks when it's all said and done. All right, so this is a little bit of a recap. Might have already seen this and all that fun stuff, but it's a little bit more pertinent to this section with the Bondo, because you're gonna have a little more to deal with. So you're gonna have to go through a couple of different grades. So the basic thing, if you don't know anything about sanding, you haven't done it before, basically you start off with a much lower grit, so it's a little bit harder to go through. It'll rip through whatever you're doing, but it's going to leave scratches behind. And then you go up higher and higher into your grits until you hit where you eventually want to be, which for us is 320. And then it'll just sand out all those scratches and leave it nice and fine and give you a nice perfect finish that you need for your primer and such, right? And it'll just give you a nice professional look in the end. Now, orbital sanders are great for this. You just have to be, I guess in a sense, sparing with your pressure and the stroke of your passes across the actual machine itself. Because what happens is if you concentrate your efforts into one little area, you're going to create an indent, or you can ruin the finish or whatever. And then once, you might not notice it with the naked eye, but as soon as you put paint on it and there's some sort of glimmer or whatever, shine on it, and it catches the light, you'll notice it a mile away, especially if you're doing a lacquer finish, which we are going to be doing on one of these ones. Beauty. Anyway, so I'm going to start off with the real small version of what we're doing with Bondo. I didn't show you how I put the Bondo on here. It's pretty straightforward. I just glazed some leftover on the edges. I technically wasn't going to do it. I was just going to sand the edge down so that it was good to go, but I figured I had some Bondo, so I would do it. So all I did was just take the putty knife and scrape it off, and then kind of come around the edge and just kind of clean it up a little bit. But I'm going to take 320, and I'm going to show you how this is nice and thin here, and then this is a little bit thicker. So this one here, I'm probably going to take about 120, and I might use the orbital in this area really quick, but I'm not going to do it for more than about 3 or 4 passes kind of thing, and then I'm going to come back to my 320 and finish it off. Be very, very delicate at this point, because right now it's easy to take away from your project, but you can't put it back unless you're going to be building it up with more Bondo and more things and that kind of a thing. All right. Now with plywood, it will stain the top of the plywood with your Bondo, because it will go inside and seep into the first layer of your thing. So you will see things such as this where it's a little bit of staining, even though it's perfectly flat. I've already done this side because I was dealing with a little spot there. But this is what your finish should look like, is all up in here. I'm going to start here and I'm going to come down. When we get to this spot here, I'll do the orbital real quick, and we'll try to do that in real time. And then I'm going to show you some thicker fun stuff to have to get through, so you can see how that goes. Always feather out your work when you're sanding. You can see the color of the veneer changing from a little bit of a darker to a lighter look. Like I said, go with the grain. You'll see a couple spots if you go outside of your grain there or whatever. At some point in time there was maybe a little scratch or something like that. You'll see that a mile away. So just work it nice. You can use a high build primer or something like that if you want, which I will be using on this, but you can give it a couple coats instead of just doing the one quick coat that I'll probably do. It's just based off of your finish and how good you are, how patient you are with this type of thing. But as you can see, when you're using a 320 grit or a higher grit, when it comes to Bondo, it takes a lot more time and it takes a lot more force than it did for your wood filler. But it's 1,000 times stronger. So it's definitely worth the patience to go through and just get it done, and the extra little elbow grease. It's totally worth it. And the primer like adheres to it amazingly too. So, you know, you don't, all that stuff put together increases its strength overall. Okay, so I can get a little bit here on this bottom part, no problem, it's almost done already. But I'm gonna take the orbital for this little section here. Okay, this is 120 grit. I don't want to hit this very hard, and I don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. I'm just going to glide over this area, and then I'm going to feather it out just a tad, and then I'm going to do everything by hand. All right, here we go. Okay, so I could tell already before I hit this that I have to put another little coat on there, but I'm going to get rid of as much as I can and see how far we have to go, because I might be able to smooth out the actual flare or chip or whatever that may be in this veneer and make it disappear, and we won't have to deal with anything. So I've got a little bit of work that I got to do in here. But that's fine. That's why it was built up so much. So like anything else, like I said before, you'll probably have to go back. We did that with our other one as well. You're going to want to go back as many times as you have to get rid of those little edges and those little things. This was the worst spot, so it doesn't surprise me that I'll have to go back for a little bit. So I'll mix up just a little tad of Bondo, and I'll fix up whatever spots that I have to, and we'll go from there. Okay, I'll finish off this side down here. All right, as good as new right there. Looks perfect. Okay. What you will find with Bondo is it's going to gunk up your sandpaper quite a bit. You can actually just take like a file, or you can take like an X-Acto knife, and you can just scrape that off, and then your paper is going to be almost as good as new, and it'll last you a little while longer. All right. When it gunks up like that, then it gives you scratches, bumps, and all that fun stuff on that. And you don't want that. So, secret little trick of the trade, so you're not going through a ton of sandpaper. All right, you can use an old credit card or something too. I don't know if you have something like that kicking around, but just don't use anything that's too hard that's going to actually scratch or tear this. All right, so I'm going to spin around this bad boy around, since we're looking at all the things that we did here. Now this one here is going to be a little harder for me to reach and play around with. I am going to 100% use the orbital sander on this bad boy. It might move around a little bit on me, so we'll try not to shake the camera, because this is going to shake enough. I'm going to take a majority of this off. MDF is very, very resilient to sandpaper in a flat scenario. Around edges and corners, it will chew it away like butter, and it can sculpt like butter too. It's great. But on a flat surface like this, it'll hold its own all day long, and it won't really concave in. I wouldn't press super hard by any means, because obviously it's not that resilient. It's not gonna, I'm not telling you just do whatever the hell you want. But as it sits right here, you can go back and forth quite a bit on it, and we don't have to feather it out too much. If you start noticing a massive color change here, and you do wear it down a little bit, you're going to want to feather that out, okay? We're gonna do that anyway, but eventually when we actually sand the whole entire cabinet, because you'll notice with MDF, it does have its own kind of finish on it. And we're just gonna be scratching that away, which you want, because the primer will stick to it better. All right, here we go. All right, so as you can see, it comes off nice and quick with 120. That's what I was using on our MDF. I'm using my 320 now to finish this off. I'll get rid of any like kind of gunk and stuff that's left over. There's a few little spots that I want to hit with that orbital again right here to get rid of any kind of lip or extra that's right there where my thumb is kind of going over. But I'm going to be going over the whole entire thing with 120 first, so I will go back and I will do that at that point in time. But this is as smooth as glass at this point. You're not going to notice that through any primer or paint. So that's what we want, okay? I'm going to do that over on this bad boy too. So you guys can see the other version of a hard, tight spot to get to. It's going to be hard to kind of get the camera in there. But I'm going to use the orbital. This is going to take a little bit extra time. You can take the sanding block and do this by hand if you really want to, depending on your level of confidence on this stuff. Yeah, don't wreck it when you're dealing with something this intricate. You probably don't have this problem. If you do have this problem, then follow the steps as we're showing you. All right, so I'm going to try to get in there as much as I can. The rest I'm going to have to do by hand. All right, so as you can see, what I was focusing on was just this little spot where we have the groove. This chunk that's here, you could actually just take a chisel now and just crack that off. I'll probably just end up taking the X-Acto blade that I was showing you there and do that. But what I want to really get at is this little chunk on the side there. So take our 320. We're going to go really nice and smooth here. We want to get this smooth line. We don't want to ruin our finish because that's an actual finished line that you're going to see when the cabinet is 100% complete. So we don't want to wreck it, but we wanted to build it up because you will see, you would have seen that groove that's in there. Okay, so I'm not putting a ton of pressure. Let the paper do all the work. Take your time. If this takes you 20 minutes, it's worth it. Trust me. Even though I know nobody wants to do this for 20 minutes. And it won't take you that long, as you can see. So I mentioned breaking edges. This will be about a 25 to 45 degree angle when you break the edges on anything. You're going to want to do this all the way around, but I'm just cleaning up this edge while I'm in here. Blow off. Look at that. She's a beauty. Give it a little bit more love. Now, when you paint that, you're not going to notice we ever had any issues with that whatsoever. I might go over it a little bit more as I go through, as I'll get pickier and pickier as I finish this sucker off. All right, so on the front here, I haven't done it yet just because we were showing you all the other stuff. We will be cleaning up and finishing off all these holes in the front there too, sanding that all down as well. And you guys will see the finished look, and I'll go over the cabinets again before I do an actual finish on them with the sanding in the next lesson. So if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that, as always, feel free to ask us. And if you have a very specific issue, feel free to upload pictures, videos, whatever, email us direct, and we'll get back to you.